Residents thought it was the safest place in America, but tonight this small town in Connecticut is a scene of chaos and despair. It was just pretty confusing, to be honest. I think when anyone does a major disaster, you are so focused on just trying to get the story that you are thinking about the next deadline, you're thinking about whether the live view is going to work, you're thinking about trying to get information, which is often the hardest. And we got there, it was nighttime, it was cold, the roads were all blocked. You knew that something awful had happened, but the information was still starting to dribble out. With the sound of gunshots roaring through the corridors, terrified children cowered in their classrooms. You tried not to think about it because I noticed on a couple of occasions when I was doing a live cross, I let my mind start drifting and thinking about my own nieces who I love and adore, and they're 5, 6 and 3, and I suddenly could think of their bodies on the floor in that schoolroom, and that just pulled me up immediately. I thought, I can't let myself go down that track because I won't be able to do my job. So you really did just have to sort of shut yourself off on that first couple of days. For now, the school remains a crime scene. The bodies of the children, the 6 adults, as well as the shooters, remain inside until investigators and medical officers properly identify them. Probably about 3 days in, when we were still there in Sandy Hook and we'd been sort of doing 18, 19-hour days, we were pretty exhausted. There was a moment in the hotel room when Louis Eriglu and I were editing the 7:30 report story, and we were listening to Barack Obama on the television, and he started naming each of the children, and I just started crying. And you know, Louis just sort of said, "You all right, mate?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." You just debrief with your colleagues. It's so important on jobs like that to keep checking in with each other to make sure you're okay. But I don't mind admitting that there were definitely moments when it just got too much. Sandy Hook. The words have been seared into my mind. So going back to Sandy Hook just 6 weeks later, I was not looking forward to it at all because I'd known just how difficult and how much the media had invaded this place, and I just thought, great, here we are going back again. And also the pressure of knowing that for foreign correspondent I had to try and get a family member to talk to me.
He was a bit of a philosopher. He asked questions about life and God and what happens after we die. I always called him an old soul.
We basically went to Sandy Hook with foreign correspondent not knowing if we would have anything to film because we still didn't have the okay from Veronique Posner, and so we sat in the hotel room, and on the day I sent her another text message and I said, "How are you feeling? Do you think you might be able to talk to us today?" And she said no, she wasn't feeling very well. I left it at that. You know, I'm not going to put any pressure on people who've gone through this kind of pain. The following day I approached her again. We were wondering whether we should just check out of the hotel and try and find another angle somewhere, and in the end she said that she would do it. Now, I don't ever think that I know everything about interviewing survivors and people who've gone through tragedy, so I went to the DART website, which is dartcentre.org, and it has tips for interviewing people, and among those tips are to offer, if they want, a friend or a family member with them during the interview, to make them aware of how the material is going to be used. We had to make it really clear to Veronique that the photographs of her son would continue appearing on the website, that the interview we did might be edited and appear on the website separately to the story, to just give her that sense of power, that basically she was running the show and that we were her guests in her home, and that if she ever wanted to pull the plug on the interview, then it was absolutely her right to do so.
It's really heart-wrenching to see your child's name on a headstone.
We had a very limited amount of time. She was not feeling very well. She said she'd made a doctor's appointment and we had 40 minutes to basically set up lights, do an interview and try and get a couple of other covering shots. And can I just say that story reminds me of why we even struggled with the language we were using around people in this story, because they had lost children in a mass shooting, but we throw around the words saying, oh, did you get that last shot, or who's going to shoot that? And we had to keep reminding ourselves to watch what we were saying, because just using those words could have a bad effect on the people we were speaking with. But I took her inside to the kitchen, we sat there and spoke. I got a sense of how far I could go with the questions, and also talked to her about how the footage was going to be used, while Greg Wilesmith and Rob Hill set up the lights and set up the interview situation. So I had about 10 minutes with her beforehand, and then we did the interview.
He has left such a void.
We had a lot of time driving, so Rob and Greg and I spoke a lot in the car. We talked about the people we'd met, we talked about how we'd dealt with it, and how we hoped the story would turn out. And I also think I've done a lot of follow-up with Veronique Posner, making sure that they felt okay about the interview after we'd done it. And then when the story went to air, I've made several contacts with them as well to make sure that they were okay about it, and to make them feel that their well-being was actually a priority of mine as well.
I'd like other mothers to hear me, to hear or grasp even a bit of the magnitude of the loss. I'm speaking on behalf of my son so that he's not forgotten.
It's difficult not to feel emotional about it at times, because it is in your face all the time here at the moment because of the story. And I have spoken to colleagues in this office, I've spoken to producer Dee Porter about a moment that might have made me feel a bit emotional. But what you get from the people in Newtown and Sandy Hook is that they don't want that tragedy to amount to nothing. They want to see some change in the gun laws. So there's that sense of purpose, and I guess that's how I feel, that there's a sense of purpose in putting the story forward from both sides, from the NRA and the people in America who feel so strongly about it, and from the families in Newtown.